Researchers have demonstrated directional photon emission, the first step toward extensible quantum interconnects. Quantum computers hold the promise of performing certain tasks that are intractable even on the world's most powerful supercomputers. In the future, scientists anticipate using quantum computing to emulate materials systems, simulate quantum chemistry, and optimize hard tasks with impacts potentially spanning finance to pharmaceuticals. However, realizing this promise requires resilient and extensible hardware. One challenge in building a large-scale quantum computer is that researchers must find an effective way to interconnect quantum information nodes, smaller-scale processing nodes separated across a computer chip. Because quantum computers are fundamentally different from classical computers, conventional techniques used to communicate electronic information do not directly translate to quantum devices. However, one requirement is certain. Whether via a classical or a quantum interconnect, the carried information must be transmitted and received. To this end, MIT researchers have developed a quantum computing architecture that will enable extensible, high-fidelity communication between superconducting quantum processors. In work published in the journal Nature Physics, MIT researchers demonstrate step 1, the deterministic emission of single photons, information carriers, in a user-specified direction. Their method ensures quantum information flows in the correct direction more than 96% of the time. Linking several of these models enables a large network of quantum processors that are interconnected with one another no matter their physical separation on a computer chip. In a conventional classical computer, various components perform different functions such as memory, computation, etc. Electronic information, encoded and stored as bits, which take the value of ones and zeros, is shuttled between these components using interconnects, which are wires that move electrons around on a computer processor. But quantum information is more complex. Instead of only holding a value of 0 or 1, quantum information can also be both 0 and 1 simultaneously, a phenomenon known as superposition. Also, quantum information can be carried by particles of light called photons. These added complexities make quantum information fragile, and it can't be transported simply using conventional protocols. A quantum network links processing nodes using photons that travel through special interconnects known as waveguides. A waveguide can either be unidirectional and move a photon only to the left or to the right, or it can be bidirectional. Most existing architectures use unidirectional waveguides, which are easier to implement since the direction in which photons travel is easily established. But since each waveguide only moves photons in one direction, more waveguides become necessary as the quantum network expands, which makes this approach difficult to scale. In addition, unidirectional waveguides usually incorporate additional components to enforce the directionality, which introduces communication errors. The researcher says that they can get rid of these loosey components if they have a waveguide that can support propagation in both the left and right directions and a means to choose the direction at will. This directional transmission is what they demonstrated, and it is the first step toward bidirectional communication with much higher fidelities. Using their architecture, multiple processing modules can be strung along one waveguide. A remarkable feature of the architecture design is that the same module can be used as both a transmitter and a receiver, and photons can be sent and captured by any two modules along a common waveguide. To accomplish this, the researchers built a model comprising 4 qubits. Qubits are the building blocks of quantum computers and are used to store and process quantum information. But qubits can also be used as photon emitters. Adding energy to a qubit causes the qubit to become excited, and then when it de-excites, the qubit will emit the energy in the form of a photon. However, simply connecting one qubit to a waveguide does not ensure directionality. A single qubit emits a photon, but whether it travels to the left or to the right is completely random. To circumvent this problem, the researchers utilized two qubits and a property known as quantum interference to ensure the emitted photon travels in the correct direction. The technique involves preparing the two qubits in an entangled state of single excitation called a Bell state. This quantum mechanical state comprises two aspects, the left qubit being excited and the right qubit being excited. Both aspects exist simultaneously, but which qubit is excited at a given time is unknown. When the qubits are in this entangled Bell state, the photon is effectively emitted to the waveguide at the two qubit locations simultaneously, and these two emission paths interfere with each other. Depending on the relative phase within the Bell state, the resulting photon emission must travel to the left or to the right. By preparing the Bell state with the correct phase, the researchers choose the direction in which the photon travels through the waveguide. They can use this same technique but in reverse to receive the photon at another model. The researchers found that their technique achieved more than 96% fidelity. This means that if they intended to emit a photon to the right, 96% of the time it went to the right. Now that they have used this technique to effectively emit photons in a specific direction, the researchers want to connect multiple modules and use the process to emit and absorb photons. This would be a major step toward the development of a modular architecture that combines many smaller scale processors into one larger scale and more powerful quantum processor.